Stand by. Is this thing on?
Yes, Dan.
Oh, hello.
You're listening to Old News with Dan and Carrie.
This just in.
Breaking news to report.
We are live.
Old newscasters
Can we just say former?
Sure. Former newscasters reunite behind the mic after more than 20 years.
Old news is good news.
Stay tuned.
In 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Old News with Dan and Carrie. We're back at it, and we have a really great guest for you today.
Today's guest is former Channel 27 news anchor and reporter Kit Kendeigh. Dan and I worked with Kit at the Madison, Wisconsin ABC affiliate, WKOW-TV, back in the late 90s and early 2000s. Kit went from covering politics to working in politics when she worked in communications for Wisconsin Republican Robin Vos, the longest standing Speaker of the Wisconsin State Assembly. Today, Kit is the Director of External Affairs and Communications at TDS Telecom in Madison, Wisconsin. And Kit, welcome to Old News.
Hi, friends. How are you?
Hey, good to see your face.
It is great to see you, Kit.
You have had an interesting career. Started
Yes.
journalism, you're going to all these different roles on the other side. Let's go way back to Channel 27 when we worked together. There was a unique situation when you arrived at the station because your bro, Andy Kendeigh, was already there. So your name was already known.
Yeah. He recruited me. He said, "Oh, we have a weekend anchor position open, so I think you should apply." And I remember driving up in a snowstorm in April for the interviewed with Sandy Kowal, and then I think she was assistant news director at the time. And then I was hired a week later.
Oh.
And I started, of course, to be on the air in time for, the May book.
When you said you drove up, where did you drive up from, Kit? Where did you drive from?
At the time, I was working in Springfield, Illinois as a Capitol Bureau chief.
Mhm.
And so I graduated from University of Illinois in Springfield and got my master's degree in there at the Public Affairs Reporting Program at UIS. And then I stayed on at WAND, then was an ABC affiliate in Springfield. So I worked there for like 3.5 years covering Illinois politics.
You knew early you wanted to cover politics.
Yep. My dad raised me as a Kennedy Democrat, and then I turned Republican.
You're not supposed to say that when you're a journalist, though.
Oh, I didn't. I swear I did not. Nobody knew my political affiliations, and I didn't really have a political affiliation. I just loved politics.
Mhm.
And then I just gravitated toward a party that just fit my values. So that's kind of how it happened. And a little story that my last day at WKOW, and I knew I was going to move to Chicago because my husband had a new job there. And at the time, I was covering some kind of Madison mayoral announcement, and Sue Bauman was the mayor at the time, pulled me aside and asked me to join her office.
Oh, really?
And I was like, "Oh, no, I'm moving to Chicago. I'm sorry." So no one really knew what I was. So that was good.
You were doing your job then.
That's
What
the whole
was it
point.
about politics, and what is it about politics that you so enjoy?
I really liked and continue to like just the communication part of it, how someone can say something and then inspire people to do something. So be it change a law, impact people's lives. I just think the power of political speech is just incredible. So this is so dorky. Okay, I'm showing my true self here. When I was in high school, I did a lot of studying of John F. Kennedy's speeches. And so I love just the way that you could write, and it sounded like poetry. And it's kind of like singing a song, but without music behind it when you give a political speech. At least that's my philosophy.
At least the ones who are good at it.
Yeah, okay. You have that little caveat.
You were at 27. You were the weekend anchor. You were doing political reporting too when you weren't weekend anchoring. But you also, weren't you the anchor for Fox too at that same time, the weekend Fox anchor?
I did that on Friday nights and Saturday nights.
Okay.
So it felt like I was an anchor-a-thon, where I just kind of anchoring the news. And then, no, excuse me, it was Saturday and Sunday nights. My bad. I did
Yeah.
have Friday nights off. I think I negotiated that. So, but no, I just felt like it was a good time to have a lot of experience. And if I do recall, Dan, I did anchor with you on KO on Sunday nights, which how did you do that?
Remember that period? I was going to say you are the person I anchored the most with next to Carrie, because there was a period of time. I don't know if I can't remember if they didn't have a Sunday night anchor or they
No,
just.
I was always solo until they brought a couple people in.
Oh, okay.
It was sort of a revolving door.
Okay. Well, that was hard. I would just remember like I would come in, I don't know, about 9 o'clock at night or something like that. And then
Did
I'd
you
anchor
go
with
home after that?
you.
I don't even remember.
No, I would stay there and I would kind of start setting up the morning show until our producer came in. We might not have had a producer. I can't remember. We kind of went in and out of that. But yeah, but I remember like just how when you're really tired and you're just kind of in a tunnel, like you just feel like you're in a tunnel. I remember anchoring with you and I felt like that. And you're all you had a lot of energy to
Bubbly,
go
bubbly,
by, just like rolling in there, just like, oh boy. I mean, it was great to do it with you, but yeah, that was tough. That was
yeah,
hard.
what they ask you to do a lot. I mean,
Right. Yeah. And they ask even more now, what we've heard from so many of the people we've talked with who are either
right?
still in or not, or just out. Yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, look at what you were doing on the weekends. You were sometimes you were producing, reporting, and anchoring, weren't you?
Yep. I was in charge of everything. That means you did everything. That, I would do assignment editing. I loved hiring as many interns as possible so that they could help write and put things together. But then you're also teaching people too. So that's good and bad, because then sometimes you're like, oh, I could just do it quicker. But you're just getting a lot done just like the morning show, you're getting a lot done in a short period of time. And it's fun because it's a more relaxed environment where you're wearing the shorts and your, blazer, and no one knows that you're wearing the shorts.
Right.
um,
It was Zoom before there was Zoom.
so yeah, exactly. No, you didn't have as many camera shots back then, but no, it was fun. And I just like you had your morning show family, we had our weekend family. And fortunate enough for me, 2 of the 5 years I was at KOW, it was with my own brother. So we had a blast. We had lots of fun.
And I remember your parents being so proud that you were both there together. I just think they loved having you both there.
They did. And they would come in and watch us do the newscasts like it was something amazing, and and if they were not at the station, they would be at our houses and taking pictures of us like, oh, look, you're on TV.
If it was today, they would have just been able to sit in their house because they lived in Illinois, right?
Right. Yep.
They would have just
Yep.
sat in their house and watched you online.
Yeah. They were
That'd be
proud. We used to joke in our families, and I think it's Andy created it because he's very creative. That WKOW was actually what stood for back in the day when we were anchoring was Watch Kendeigh's on the weekends.
Oh, cute.
Of course, they didn't take us up on that brilliant idea to market us, but we got okay ratings, I think. I may have to check the books, but it was fun. But we had a blast. It was good.
Yeah.
People thought we were married, but
I was gonna
we
say.
got them straight,
And I think if they would have put you two next to each other, they would have seen the family resemblance. It's
Yeah.
strong.
Hello.
Yeah. Yeah.
We used to joke around and put old home movies on and just kind of punk each other and like make fun of each other during our newscasts because it's the weekends, you can do that. So it was really fun. So bring it
I
back.
remember that I think I saw a video of Andy, and we talked about this. We just talked with Jay Wilson, who loves Andy, of course, and they're great friends.
Jay's so great.
And I
Great
think
family.
you're the one who brought the video of Andy doing punt, pass, and kick.
Right.
The
Yes.
kid. Yeah.
Yep. That's actually a Twitter picture of him doing a punt, pass, and kick competition.
Yeah.
That's his Twitter X picture. I have fond memories of working with Andy, but I'm so glad I'm not working on TV anymore, just because everybody gets to see everything, all your mistakes, and then you can see it over and over on whatever social media channel you choose. So I'm glad that we are old folks. I'm glad we're old news.
Yeah, me too. We've said that we are grateful that it was just an emerging thing when we'd have to update the website and there wasn't that immediacy of immediate feedback all the time. We get emails, but that's like something about sitting down to write an email is a little more of a lengthy process than just firing off a comment or, having the videos looping and looping and looping and looping on social media.
Yeah. But then we also had the benefit of that there weren't as many outlets for people to get the news. So then you were you guys were big time. You guys were celebrities. People noticed you, going out to the grocery store. And I don't know if that's like that today in Madison, Wisconsin, or in Omaha, Nebraska. I don't know. But I do know that for the time being, Rachel Kisko's haircut was a big deal.
Just like Rachel from Friends, Rachel from the
Right. It was a big deal. She was Wendy Warren, big deal. So I mean, I don't know, different time.
Well, and we were not, because morning shows were not a big deal back then. So
Well, you were a first, right? You
were,
had the
yeah.
first morning show
We
in the
were.
area.
But you probably were recognized more
our
than
stage.
we would have been. I'm thinking just because, the weekends and the nights, and people would watch on Sunday night. That's a pretty watched TV news day back in the
The thing
day.
that I noticed is just people love sports so much, so they associated me with Andy even more so than just me. When I would go out with Andy, like to the bars or something like that, they would recognize us. And one particular time, Andy was working at WISN in Milwaukee, and they had a program that was at a bar for the Packers. And I think Donald Driver was there and Mark Tauser, and it was called Pack Attack.
Mm-hmm.
And I went there for one of those recordings that they would, I don't know if it was live or tape, it doesn't really matter, but I had a random lady come up to me and ask me about Tommy, my firstborn child. Like, how is your son Tommy? And I was like, who are you? I left, I wasn't in TV at the time. And I'm like, and then I was like, oh, I forgot you watched me. And I did talk about how I had a child. You just forget that people actually were watching sometimes, and they cared about your life. And that's nice. It's good. It was good. But
Tommy,
then
who is a grown man now, right?
Yeah.
Tommy,
Yeah. Tommy's now 23.
I was going to say, and at Stanford Law School.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing.
Just weird just how they just grow up. How does that happen?
Kit, my question that I like to ask week to week is, do you have any bloopers that just still stick with you and maybe make you laugh or cringe all these years later?
Yep, I do. A couple come to mind really quickly. So I was at a horrible situation. It was a huge explosion at the Fall River Foundry. I don't remember what the year it was. And we were supposed to do a live shot there. And I was with Steve Shamras, who's now in Milwaukee as an anchor at WTMJ. And we were supposed to do live shots, and we did not have any power, but we could still do a live shot, but we didn't have, one of the circuits were down. So what we ended up doing was we didn't have any lights, but we had to do these live shots. So what our videographer decided to do was, why don't we just get a couple big flashlights, and we're standing up on the top of the live truck, and then he was at the, like, literally standing as much as he could close to the live truck, and lit us with two big flashlights. So I don't remember what that was. Back in the day, it was like, what was that where you would like have the flashlight underneath here in the woods? What was that called?
I don't know. I think
something project.
Oh, the Blair
Witch Project.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was like that. I was so, we were like, the Fall
Telling-
River Foundry has exploded. And it was so embarrassing. We had to go on. It was good. And then, but some of the things that you look back on, you think like it wouldn't fly today. So remember Y2K, because the world was going to end because our computers couldn't like go from 1999 to 2000.
Yeah.
So, okay, what did we do? We had a special, like we had a live program, like we were everywhere possible. We were at I don't know, at the communication center, the sheriff's department, to see if anything happened when it comes to crime and emergency services. Then we had Wendy and Jeff, I think, on a rooftop because there were fireworks. So they were
fireworks don't get fire.
I don't know. So they're out in the cold doing the play-by-play of how is the world shutting down or not. And then I was live. We had a party. I was live inside the state capitol where there was this huge party. Like, okay, the state of Wisconsin had a huge party during Y2K at midnight with all these people, and there was a bar or two and a dance. It was
Mhm.
like, why would you have something when you didn't know if something bad was going to happen? Let's get as many people in the state capitol as possible, and then let's put TV news crews up on. It just made no sense.
Well, if the world was going to end, you might as well have some fun while it's happening.
Right.
Like, really? Okay.
It's very human.
I don't know. No, but there's so many different stories that come to mind where you just made it. You just got, because back in the day, for those who don't understand how news worked, you actually had to run a tape to the control room to have them press play to run video,
And
not
to
like just a
run,
computer that
literally
automatically
our
does it for
legs.
you.
Yeah, like not like run through the computer. You'd take the VHS and go sprinting down the hallway.
So, I mean, you do have nightmares about that on occasion. So you're like, oh my gosh, tape didn't get in. Okay, ad lib. Okay, here we go.
Uh-huh.
Gary still has those dreams every night.
I though that's one of my many stress dreams that it's like I'm like I'll be texting Dan the next day, Dan, I had another news nightmare. I mean, we've been out of this for 22 or whatever years, and still it's like that's one of my stress dreams that it's like I can't get to the newsroom and we can't get on air and something's going sideways, and I tell
So
you,
my biggest stress TV dream is that I covered tornadoes, and it was a storm chaser in central Illinois. And I actually did a stand up in front of a tornado that was like on the
Wow.
horizon. And I thought it was like 15 miles away. And it was like maybe a mile away. And you know what's funny? You kind of don't know what to say when a tornado is right behind you. And so I'm
why
like,
can't I think of the words?
like, there's this big tornado.
If you look over my shoulder, yeah.
So I have rewritten that stand up bazillion times. And then and always trying to make sure that you're on the south side of a storm cell. I mean, that got, you had some PTSD after that. Like, wow, that was a huge F1 tornado. Like, why again? Shoo, ignorance.
Well, you were young and dumb back then.
That's so
You
dumb.
did it because it was fun. Hey, so just talking about the bloopers too, when you did things that you thought were, that was a disaster on air, and you got feedback from people who saw it, what was usually their reaction? Like, because I could tell you what people said to me, but like, what did people say to you? Like, if it was bad stuff that went on, you'd think, oh gosh, it was the worst thing ever. I looked like an idiot. My hair was standing on end. I couldn't find my words or whatever. But people were always usually, unless it was your own family,
People
they were
give
pretty
you
nice about it.
grace. Yeah, they
Yeah.
give you grace.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There was one time when Ryan Moore, we were in Fort Atkinson, and there was a fire downtown. It was huge. And of course, we had audio problems. And then I'm standing off camera going, la, la, la. Yes, there's a fire, whatever. And he like was seriously running down the street because that's how far he had to park the live truck, running down the street going, you're on.
Oh my
Oh. And I
God.
walked into the camera shot going, hi.
No.
Oh,
Yes, there was a fire here. We don't know how it started.
yeah, we know. We just heard you singing about it.
Yeah.
La, 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 there's a fire.
Well,
It's bad.
people kind of get a kick out of that, I think, and they know people are human, no matter.
It is bad though, because you become immune to like the bad things in life, and
Yeah.
no one understands that at all outside of the business. But then you become immune to, yep, I had to go to another homicide investigation. I went to a crime scene. You've been to enough of them that you're like, okay, I've got to put on my reporter shell. Not going to let that impact me, because I'm going to have to tell you exactly what happened there 2 minutes after I get there. So but then everybody else is like, wait, so insensitive. We're like, well, I had to tell you the news without having it impact me. So I'm sorry.
Did you have to unwind?
I'll think about it later. Yeah.
Did you have to unwind from that moving into politics? Or did you still just kind of keep your
Oh, you always keep it. Absolutely.
Good training
Absolutely.
for politics, probably.
Yeah. Because you can't necessarily show your emotion if a reporter asks you a question and they really ruffle your feathers. You're like, okay, great. And then after the fact, you're like, oh my gosh.
Kept the poker face, moving on to the next job.
It's fun. It is. It just keeps you on your toes. I left in 2003. So
Okay.
after 5 years, and Keith and I were moving our family down to Chicago, and then we kind of moved around a little bit, and then my friends used to say that we had a boomerang that always just brought us back to Madison because we like it so much. We like the area, and I do really like Wisconsin. We lived in Philly for a couple of years, have great friends out there, but then just Madison was always, the Madison area was always home. And I do love small town Wisconsin. I think from all the different memories and the different stories that I've done in Wisconsin, or even with the my state assembly position, I just loved going to just small towns, you know, where you can find 3 or 4 bars on Main Street and then a couple stores. And I don't know, it feels right. It's the shoe that fits.
Sounds like a Hallmark movie. I bring that up a lot, but
Yeah, it
you-
does.
so you left. I mean, so you left because you basically had to, because you were moving with
Right.
the family.
Mhm.
Was it hard for you to leave the business at that time?
Yes, actually, I fully admit it. I really love the business, the energy, the people, just getting things done and really writing. I love like putting things together and writing things, and even producing. I love producing. I love writing in somebody's voice. But I I just I thought about going back into the business when we moved back to Madison, but it just I just I didn't want to sacrifice so much family time for going back into TV.
And
It's a hard business, and I applaud everybody who stays in it for as long as they do. But it was hard. I worked 5 years on the weekends, and I have some home video of my husband just talking to Tommy as a baby. Just
he's like, I gotta talk to somebody.
just talking to him like, all right, Tommy's now crawling a little bit. Let's see what go play by play of his actions. And it's like, oh, that's so sad. Why did I work every weekend, 5 years of weekends? But you know, you love it. It was great. But I've found a lot of joy in this my years in the state legislature, and you know, now I'm really having a good time at TDS Telecom. So it's good.
Yeah. And what led you to the state assembly? How did that all evolve?
Well, I had a mentor who worked in the then speaker's office named Steve Boss, and he reached out to me and said, hey, I think there's a job you should apply for. And so I did, and so I got it, and it was a blast. It was such a wild ride, such a great run. All the experiences I had in my job was not only working for the speaker, but I also was sort of like a media consultant for all the new state representatives in our caucus. And so I had the opportunity to teach people how to talk to the media and how to present themselves to the media and how to write press releases, et cetera, et cetera. So it was such a unique opportunity to get to know Wisconsin and its representatives. And it was fun, challenging, but exciting.
So you were in the dark side, as we talked about before.
Right. That's
And you
people.
taught people
Yeah,
how to
people.
manipulate the media.
Yeah, well, not manipulate. You're just telling a story in which you would like to have told. So there may be times when my husband would get mad at the TV, like they're not answering the question. I'm like, yes, they're doing a good job.
That's what we've taught them. Well,
Exactly.
which side is it harder to be on? The one asking the questions or the one answering the questions?
It depends on the situation. If it's a good story, yay, it's great. Both sides are fine. But then if you're in a crisis communications time, being the one that's potentially being attacked or, you know, on the hot seat, that's tough because it's a lot of monitoring. It's a lot of, okay, what if we do this? Then this will happen. What if we say that? Oh, what will happen then? And you could make a mistake very easily that could not be beneficial for everybody involved. So I think it just depends. It's fun. It is fun because you know how things work. You know, when some people think, oh, we'll just put out a press release on Friday at 4 o'clock and everyone's going to cover it. Like, no, they're not.
Oh, isn't that when they
Nobody's gonna care.
isn't that when they put out the press releases they don't want anyone to cover? Is Friday
Right.
at 4 o'clock?
Right. we call that the Friday afternoon news dump.
Dump.
Yeah, just
And if you want something covered, when do you release that?
first thing in the morning on Monday, and maybe Sunday evening because you have more eyes on it, and if you have exclusives, you embargo things. So you give access to people to the information, and then you lift the embargo at a certain time. Look at all this information I've given you that you didn't even need to know.
Fun. No, it's all interesting. We love the behind the scenes of all these.
How often were you an unnamed source, Kit?
So when that happens, you could be either on background or you could
Yeah.
be off the record.
Right.
And so actually not that much, because I don't know. I was never in it for me. I really truthfully wanted to do the best for my boss in the caucus, and that sounds like, oh, but like when you do some of those like manipulative kind of stuff and you're an unnamed source, then you're a lot of times you're doing it for yourself to make yourself like, oh, I'm so important and they are going to be used as a source. You would use it sparingly if everybody's on the same page. Does that make sense?
Yep. No, I get it.
Because if you can see that happening at the federal level, you totally can.
For sure.
Especially when someone's like heading out the door and then they decide to leak something. And usually leaks, especially at the the White House, it's someone to be considered a source. And if you're wanting to be considered a source and you're off the record, it's like, okay, you want to be a source more so than your job. And maybe that is part of your job and you've got it blessed, but sometimes it doesn't work in your favor.
Let me ask you this. So in the time that you were with the assembly, I mean, it was from what, like 2010 or 2011? I can't remember.
2011.
2011 till 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago now, right?
Yeah, so it was like to 2021, so the middle of the pandemic.
So that's about 10 years in that. And in that period, how did you see the press kind of change? Because things changed a lot in the news media in those 10 years. And did it become, I mean, sadly, from a journalistic standpoint, did it become easier to manage your message than it had been early on just because there was less media, or am I misreading that?
No, you're totally correct. So there were a lot more newspapers, and the local paper is still powerful regardless of where you are in this world. I mean, I still get Verona Press and I read it. But I during 2011 and the subsequent years, like there were just more people covering politics as a beat and actually having numerous stories. There just were more resources and people caring about it. Now you have folks who don't get to really dig into the weeds, so it's easier to like tell your story because they're just zipping in and zipping out of a story, but then it's harder to give people like there's an expression that people use that if you're explaining yourself, you've lost. Like if you only get to have like what your headline is and then maybe a why in there, and that's all. Because the art of manipulation is so great in the world of social media. What's harder now today are there's so many people who are experts in their own world and they're all fighting this battle. So one person could, and what you find is that one person says this is true and another person says this is true. We have fewer and fewer people in the media saying no, this is true. And what we're finding are that media outlets have their own agenda. Oh no, do they really? And so you don't have a non-biased reporter out there, unbiased reporter. So they're actually telling the story that they would like to tell, and it may be based on the owner of that outlet and the ownership of the outlet, be it they're conservative or Republican. So you just have a lot more. You have a lot more going on, a lot to monitor, a lot to figure out. Like, okay, what's going to be what is the message that we want to go viral, and who may manipulate that message? Okay, now we're back into the things you guys don't really need to know.
Oh, no, that's exactly the stuff we want to know. I mean, because the news is
it's all good.
So much. Gone are the days where we just watch Peter Jennings and just trust everything he said. And I mean, it's just so different now.
There are some outlets that do such a great job. They really do. But there are some outlets that really have an agenda. And we see that, that's how Fox News was created. They have, there are a lot of examples, and it's hard because I think people are even more opinionated and more polarized than even 10 years ago.
What about local news, though? Do you think they've kind of been able to maintain their
I think
in the
I think so. I think so, but they're also having a hard time finding people. They have a hard time paying people. They're a hard time keeping people employed. It's just an overall tough business, but at least it's still staying, at least it's still there. And then what I'm seeing in some other states is that they're doing more, and they did that a lot in Wisconsin, I think way back when, where you would share, and they're starting to do it even more, share newscasts. So I see that in Montana. They have Montana Today, and so they have just like all of the NBC stations have the morning show with one anchor, and then they have live shots in their major cities.
Oh,
so I think that'll be an evolution we'll see more and more of as resources continue to decrease.
That's really kind of the network news model from way back when, you had World News Tonight, and they had correspondents in London and Tel Aviv, and all of the different places. It's basically done in the state level. And I know the local ABC affiliate here in Madison does that with their weekend morning news, where it's Wake Up. The show we used to do was 27 First News, but now it's Wake Up Wisconsin, and they are doing it statewide.
Right.
So that's right. I mean, and the resources are hard. You're right. It sounds like it's just a challenge. And just as you mentioned too, there's so many different areas, so many different pipelines to get your news now. And that goes for TV news too.
But don't worry, it's going to be okay, because political ad season is coming up, and that's where it's a major revenue generator for TV stations, local and national. So I think we'll all, they'll all be okay, at least for the time being. The evolution of media and the internet in general. I hired, one of my first hires was for a videographer, so someone who could tell our own stories, because we wanted, and I think they continue to just want people to understand more of the story than what the regular media is providing. And then if you can make that into something that other stations can use, because they can't, and we do this even at TDS, where if we have an event and one of the news outlets aren't able to come, then we have our own videographer, and we'll give them the clips for them, and they'll use them.
Footage.
So it's just a different dynamic where if you can do a live stream for TV stations who can't make it, okay, they'll just take that. So I wanted to have that like years ago. Like, I really hope we can do that someday. But then COVID happened, and it automatically occurred.
Oh,
Because people couldn't go anywhere, so they would use whatever video you could get them. So now that's what's continuing today, where you can give people video, like, oh, here's some file video. All right, I'll use it.
Right.
Speaking of COVID, so prior to COVID, were you going into the Capitol every day in Madison?
Right, and actually during COVID, I was working at the Capitol during COVID.
And how did things change day to day? I mean, once COVID struck, how did that work with all of you going to work?
Well, everything was shut down, and just like everything that happened in the country, like people had to figure out, how are folks going to work from home? And that was, okay, wait, what? How is that happening? And I think it's, to the benefit for workers, because they have more flexibility. They were able to get more family time in. They didn't have to do a commute. But operating state government and government in general at that time was extremely difficult. I remember trying to take care of a Zoom call for the caucus, and it was like, oh my gosh, someone just stop. Everyone mute. The problem we have even still this day, that people wouldn't know how to operate the technology. And now we're better at it, but at that time it was just a mess. But it was good. I remember doing a live socially distanced press conference for everyone during COVID. And that was difficult, because people didn't know really how to ask the questions. They didn't really know how to, I mean, it was just a whole new world of how do you do a virtual press conference because you've never done it before. And I
And you
didn't like it. I like in person better, so much better.
said
But
you were doing some
Yeah.
kind of podcast during that time too, right?
yeah, I did a podcast for the National Conference of State Legislatures. I was asked to talk about crisis communications during the pandemic. And one of the main points that I got across during that is there's so much information that was coming out, and it was hard to stay current and know what was accurate, that my recommendations for state legislators at the time was like, you are not the expert. You're just there to help your district. So you don't need to be the expert of what's happening at the federal level and the decisions that are making at the federal level, because there's no way that you can be the health expert on something that is still evolving, that we don't know enough about. But a lot of times politicians do want to be the experts, on everything. But during a pandemic,
No.
you just take care of your district. You take care of your
And you're
people.
like,
You help your local businesses. You don't claim that you know everything, because nobody knew everything at that time, and we still don't. But at that, some
Interesting.
of my recommendations.
Mhm.
Again, more lessons, more lessons that you didn't even realize you needed to know about.
I love it.
Hey, so in your time there, that was obviously a big challenge, the whole COVID period. But what was maybe one of the more challenging stories or pieces of legislation that you had to kind of shepherd information through on?
Well, when I first started, it was really funny. The person who hired me, is named Janine Hale, and she was the chief of staff at the time in then the co-chair's office. And she told me, "Oh, you'll be working about 40 hours a week, and it'll get a little bit more maybe when we get toward the budget." And I thought it was great. All right, hire me. I'm just so excited. I can't wait to work for a politician. And then they had this thing which we now call Act 10, and where
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of people protested on collective bargaining changes that were occurring under then Governor Walker's administration. And so Robin Voss at the time was the main spokesperson, or one of the main spokespeople for that legislation. So that was probably the most difficult and contentious time that I have ever been in, because the protests at the Capitol seemed like they were never going to end, and you were in the middle of it, going to work every day. And it was very, very draining. And not, oh, poor me, because there are a lot of people who had a lot of situations that were impacting them. And it was just a very contentious time. And friends, there were some people who weren't even going to be my friend anymore because of who I was working for and all that. Again, not, oh, poor me, but it was difficult. But I was doing my job and believed in what I was doing. And I think it provided, I think the caucus, I was able to get a lot of our caucus members, including Speaker Voss, on national television and on regional television, to be able to tell the why. And that was the confusion, is the why. Why were they doing it? Help me understand. And be able to make their case to their constituencies. So that was difficult, but it just seems like just a short period of time, because a short period of time of intense crisis communications almost every day. But then you have little blips of that, in the last 10 years when I was in the legislature, where you'd have just, maybe a day or two of that, but not as that in that extreme.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you ever feel in danger going to work?
Yeah, actually, one of the days they cut off a vote on a Friday evening for the collective bargaining changes. They cut off the vote in the assembly at like 4:30, 5 o'clock. And I was asked to write a statement on behalf of the leadership at the time in the Republican majority in the assembly. And so I was coordinating that, and they evacuated. The reason why they called off the vote was because of potential security issues. And so I was at the Capitol and was probably one of the only people still left in the Capitol. So I called Capitol Security, and they had people from all over the state in the Capitol, and I mean, all for security. So they had like deputies from, I don't know, from Juneau County, and they had a deputy, people who were coming in to help the Capitol Police during that time. And so I called Capitol Security saying, I'm getting kind of creeped out. I have to finish my job, but could someone come in here and just sit in the office with me while I finish my work? And so I did. And I have this rule that whenever you write something, you have to have a second set of eyes reading it. And everybody was on their way home driving. So I had this sheriff deputy, read the statement from the leadership, which that was funny. He didn't. Yeah, he did correct. He thought I should have used the instead of an so I took his advice. And then I had to be escorted out with police in order to get to my car that night.
Oh my God!
Because there were protests outside.
I thought you were going to say he wanted you to add a lot of approximately's and accordingly and
allegedly
at approximately 6:35 p.m.
Throw in the word suspect here and there.
Suspect right here. Yeah. No, that's interesting. Gosh. Well, you're fine. You're here today.
No, it was good. And it was, and it seems like so long ago. So, but
yeah,
politics is politics.
Well, and you ended up then leaving the assembly. And why did you decide to kind of get out of the political? I mean, I guess there's still politics involved with what you do, but why did you decide to go to the corporate entity of TDS?
Well, I felt like I accomplished what I needed to accomplish. I checked a lot of boxes that I wanted to have checked. Because I am a political junkie, I always wanted to go to the White House. And so I was able to go to the White House several times, and I actually ran a national speakers gathering at the White House. So lots of different speakers from all over the country came and heard from various administrative officials. And it was fabulous. So I kind of like checked that box enough times. And then, and the speaker, Robin Voss, became the longest serving speaker in Wisconsin state history. And I felt like I checked that box. And so I looked for something new, something different, something that could challenge me in different ways. And the telecommunications industry is a whole nother book, a whole nother chapter in life that I'm still learning, but it intrigued me. I oversee public relations, so internal and external communications for the company, as well as a state government affairs team. So I have like two different hats, but they do cross over on occasion.
Well, I was going to tell people, I mean, I'm coming to this Zoom call using TDS fiber optics out here in St. Prairie. Are you in Madison now? You're in Madison, and are you able to use TDS where you are?
Yep. I'm at work.
You're at work. Okay. So then I would hope so then.
Yeah.
Carrie, you need to get TDS out there in the Pittsburgh area.
I don't think we're there.
No.
We started as a rural telephone company, all these different rural telephone companies. Then we bought a lot of other things, but we're mainly more than 20% of our business is in the state of Wisconsin.
I know it was nice when it came out to Sun Prairie.
That was big.
It was a big move for us out here because, some of the telephone, we were pretty much landlines out here, and then we didn't have, I think that's all we had was the old phone company, and then TDS was able to give us fiber, and that was great.
Because the city started
we had Spectrum too.
The city started to try to have their own internet.
That's right.
And they said, wow, we're not going to do this. And we said, oh, why don't we buy it from you and we'll help you out? And that began sort of this fiber expansion program at TDS. And that's what we're currently involved in.
I should have remembered that because I was on the Utilities Commission at the time in Prairie. I was trying to remember when this all happened.
I have this knowledge.
It's a few years ago. Hey, but I'm glad you know. That's good. Hey, I want to ask you, so your first job in TV was WAN TV. Was that your first journalism?
WAND. I was an intern at WCIA in Champaign when I was in college, Champaign, Illinois. But my first real on-air job was at WAND.
Okay. And what was your worst job?
As a TV reporter?
It could be anything, but yeah, if it's TV, that's fine.
I don't know. My worst job.
Maybe you didn't have one. Maybe you just love all your jobs.
No. I hate to say this, but I did not like filling in for the morning show at WAND.
Glad you didn't say KO.
No, I didn't fill in for you guys that much. They didn't, because then it meant somebody would have to produce and organize the weekend. So I didn't really, anyway, I didn't really do many mornings. I only did maybe once or twice for you all. But during mornings, I operated out of a bureau in Springfield. So I was in the state capitol there.
Yeah.
And so if I had to do the morning show, I had to drive to the station, which was out of Decatur, which was 45 minutes away, and do the morning show there. So I either had to find someone to stay with them there and get more sleep, or drive at like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning to do it. Yeah, it was a lot. So I did not like that at all. And it was funny because sometimes that I would, of course, day one, I would just be so excited and have so much caffeine flowing through my system that I'd be like, hey, this is great. This is easy. This is so much fun. And the next day I'd be like, can't do this. All right,
changes.
coming up next.
And
She's so sad.
the final of my triumvirate, I was asked first worst. What's a job you're still thirsting for, or something you're still? It doesn't have to be a job. Something you still want to do in life.
Can I have two answers?
You bet.
Okay. What I am looking, what I would love to do, my dream job, which will never happen, which is just fine, is to be a speechwriter for a president. I love, that was my favorite part of my job at the state capitol, was writing political speeches.
Sure.
I just think it's amazing to be able to write it and have, like, I think it's like writing a piece of music. It's like you have ebbs and flows and different timing and staccato here, and you know what I'm saying. And
do you
then
still study those? Do you still study
musical.
people? Do you still study people's speeches?
Am I an armchair quarterback for
Yes.
politicians? Of course I am. Like,
Yes, you
oh,
are.
I could have done it better that way. No. A political speech is getting more and more informal. So it's not like the old fashioned speech they used to have, but I still love those. But then what I'm yearning, I really want to know more about business. And so I am going to get my MBA. I'm going to go back to school, and looking to start this next fall at UW.
Good for you.
Awesome.
Always be learning.
Breaking news.
Yeah.
I need to press accept. So, you know, we'll still have to do that, but I just got accepted like a week ago. So it's an executive MBA program, and yeah, I don't know. I'm probably really dumb. Yeah, I buried the lead. I'm probably really dumb that I'm trying to fit in extra things in life, but I don't know. I just want to keep going.
Yeah, why not?
Never stop learning, you know?
And then will you use what you learn at UW in your current role?
Absolutely, 100%. I think I can speak on behalf of all three of us. We are probably not number people. We were never really allowed to do math in journalism. They always would say, oh, maybe you should talk to that person, or that should be your expert. Or so I need to have a better understanding of accounting and finance to make better decisions when it comes to corporate leadership. So I just want to have a better appreciation of just business administration in general.
Excellent. Is day to day less stressful where you are now versus the assembly?
The assembly and TV news, yes, everything. Nice, yes, it is.
Calm.
It's a good job. It's funny because when I got out of college, I did do a corporate internship at Allstate.
Oh.
And I learned so much there, but I also learned, oh my gosh, I didn't want to do that right out of college. Absolutely. I just thought it was boring. Now I really like it. It sort of suits me better.
Well,
I like the pace. I like it. It's good.
Different life stage.
Right.
Hey, I want to ask you too, because people who have listened to some of our other old news podcasts have asked me, like, what are they doing? Like, what's their family life? What do they do for fun? What do they have kids? That kind of stuff. Whatever you're willing to share, tell folks out there, you know, what your life is like outside of work and outside of TV.
Outside of work, I have 2 college age boys. Carrie already said that my oldest goes to Stanford. He's in law school. And then my youngest is Sean, and he is a junior doing international business at UW-Madison. Outside of work, I'm still love to exercise a lot. I'm not an instructor like Miss Carrie.
Like some people, yeah.
Like some people here. I would take her classes if she would teach. And I would take her sister's classes if I could actually take her classes at 9 o'clock in the morning, but I'm working. But I
That was fun when you showed up.
Yeah.
Jackie and I were teaching, and here comes Kit. We're like, woo!
So no, I like to play as much golf as possible with my husband. And no, we like to travel a lot. We love to go to the Caribbean islands, and I do have a big family. So I have 4 siblings, and so we do a lot together. So we just have so much fun. We get together as much as possible for all these high school graduations. Yes, well, I'll be there, you know. Oh, fireworks for the 4th of July. Okay, great. Of course, we're all going to be there. So it's
Still
nice.
do the Kendeigh Bowl, Thanksgiving Kendeigh Bowl, where you're playing
Well,
football?
The Kendeigh Bowl existed until we kind of had a falling out where one side thought the other side was cheating too much. And so then we kind of stopped that. However, we were
you were overinflating the footballs, right? That's
oh my gosh. It was controversy after controversy. And there was one time that I went to the emergency room after one of those Kendeigh Bowls. So yeah, because I blocked with my head down.
Head up. First rule of football. Yep.
No, we do sillier things now. On Christmas Eve, we go caroling in my sister's neighborhood with like 30 people. We just go to a bunch of houses that Anne sets up for us in advance. Just fun things like that. Big families are great, you know?
Yeah.
Yes.
I wanted
That's
to.
awesome. The Kendeigh Bowl's like the Kennedys playing.
I know. That's what it always reminded me of. Yeah. So cool.
Oh, we have a good time. Well, thank you.
Thank you. It's been great to talk with you, Kit. And I know you have work to do too outside of just talking.
I do.
The old
That's
news crew
okay.
here.
Yeah,
the old news crew is great.
We'll let you get back to it, but thank you so much, Kit Kendeigh Beyer, for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to Old News with Dan and Carrie.
That's old news for now.
Join us next time.